This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on your favorite social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because it's time to focus on caring. Careology, the science of caring, and this week's special guest host, the one and only Miles McGrath.
Cliff, you're awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Awesome. The Swap Shop. What a great show that was you did.
I'll tell you what, it gets hard sometimes because sometimes folks are lazy in the first part of the show, and then they really start firing up the calls in the second half, and the phones, the reason it's still ringing is because they're still trying to get on. But it's over. Swap Shop's over.
Well, thank you for that introduction. This is Careology, and Careology is a subset of Carebag. And if you don't know about Carebag, it's a nonprofit organization that his goal is to help spread awareness about homelessness, to help take care of the homeless population in terms of their hygiene. And we provide mobile shower units. We have a mobile pantry van that has items inside such as shampoo, toothpaste, hygiene products for the ladies. And we distribute those items at our location in Port St. Lucie on US 1. And we also go to different food distribution areas all along the Treasure Coast from Vero down to Hope Sound. And our mobile shower units are integral in terms of servicing a population that sometimes doesn't have access to a shower. And it's hard to imagine not being able to get a shower, but when you're living on the street, sometimes getting a shower is a life-changing experience, and that's why we exist. The founder of Carebag, Roseanne Brown, affectionately known as Roxy, came out with this idea to do Careology, to bring the community together and have different topics on the show, and that's why we're here today. And I have a special guest, Brittney Cano, who is a former nurse, works in healthcare, and she's going to talk about healthcare. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the events that Carebag has coming up. And a special first that Roxy's been wanting to do for several years is a Carebag community baby shower. And that's happening on October 14th. And if you would like to be part of that, either as a volunteer, you would like to donate items, or you know a expectant mother who needs items, go to the Carebag website. It's carebagfl.org. You can register for either of those. And it's going to be an amazing event. It's happening, again, on the 14th. You can find all the information there on the website. So that is going to be an exciting event. We've got some great sponsors for that event. Channel 25 is going to be there. St. Lucie Jewelry and Coins is one of our major sponsors. There's going to be gift baskets chock full of items for young moms and their infants to help them get a good start. So that is happening on October 14th. Now, on to our guest. Brittney Cano has been a registered nurse working primarily in critical care for over 13 years, caring for patients with preventable diseases, and her own personal struggles with her health led her into the transformational coaching and holistic wellness 10 years ago. What a transition that is, and we're going to find out about that today. She is truly passionate about guiding others to heal and elevate mind, body, and soul so that they can fulfill their life's purpose with passion. Brittney is known as a compassionate and kind creator of a safe space, and I can say that firsthand. I've attended one of her ceremonies, and a lot of times when you go to these group events, there's like erraticness. That when you're with Brittney, there's just calm, caring that exudes from her. She excels at guiding others to take inspired action and create positive, moving forward change. Brittney, welcome to Careology.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you so much.
We're so glad to have you here. You know, a lot of us went through a lot in 2020, especially with health and awareness. And being a nurse, I just want to start out with what was 2020 like for you as a nurse in healthcare? We talk about first responders. I think of nurses kind of being on the front lines of what we all experienced in a very tough year, 2020 and 2021.
It was really crazy. I think in hindsight, even more so. Fortunately, I think for me, I hadn't been working a lot in bedside, but when the pandemic hit, I ended up working full-time in ICU. And, initially we didn't know a lot about the virus, so it was scary in the aspect of how do we treat the patients? Are we going to get this just from, surfaces? There was all that fear. And then as time went on, just seeing so many people who unfortunately, passed as a result of COVID, it was really hard. And working in ICU, we would get really close with the patients because they'd be in there for so long, their families couldn't come visit. And then unfortunately, in the beginning, many of them didn't make it. We became really close with our teammates, the people we worked with. So there was a really special bond that happened. And overall, I would say even so, it was hard. It really was a lot of challenges, but there were some really beautiful relationships that formed out of it. And I think everybody who was working during it, and also like a patient and the family members, everyone was doing the best that they could and try to come together as a community. At least that was my experience.
What would you say, having gone through that, we learn a lot through the hard challenges we face. What are some things that you took away from that you were kind of unexpected? You're like, wow, this stretched me, and this has made me a better person? Or what are some of the things that your takeaways from that experience?
It really highlighted the importance of health, even more so, like how important it is that we do take care of ourselves. It highlighted the importance of community. We saw across, nations, across the entire world, the negative effects of people not having that close connection with loved ones and being separated. There's a lot of research that supports that loneliness can actually take 15 years off of our livelihoods. So it also really taught me and showed, I think, many of us how important community is, but also how resilient we are. I think most of us can look back and think, wow, we lived through that, and overcame a lot. And another thing that really came out of that for me was what burnout really is, because I really got burned out, and I did not even know I was burned out until my body started telling me I was burned out.
Wow. It's got to be a challenge when you're in such an integral role. People are leaning on you in a very meaningful way, in a very important way, and you have to say no sometimes. How do you do that?
Well, I think sometimes you just have to say no because you don't have any other choice. My burnout really happened, I think, it really set in about halfway through working during the pandemic. But at that time, I just kept, going on pretty much. But then once my assignment was over, I really had to, the opportunity to listen to my body and reevaluate my priorities. I think that that's another thing that COVID did for people was, if we chose to, gave us an opportunity to look at what's really valuable to me. And I thought pre-pandemic, I was living by my values. And post-pandemic, I got really, really clear what my values were and how that really looks in real time. And I would say, even though it was a lot of hardship at times during that, I'm in a better place now because of it. But if we don't listen to those either signals of our body, or if we don't take these, things and able to turn them into something that benefits us, benefits our community, then sometimes we're left in a worse place.
Not everybody is a nurse. I think it's something you're called to do. How did you get into that type of healthcare?
My mom encouraged me to go into nursing. I actually wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to help people. We have a lot of dysfunction in my family. And so I knew I wanted to help people. And she was like, go to nursing school. You'll always have a job. I'll help you pay for school. And so I went into nursing, which I'm really grateful that I did, because it's such a versatile career. There's so many different ways you can take it. And actually, when I did my psych rotation during nursing school, I was pretty glad that I chose to go nursing route. So yeah, that's how I got into it. I think it was like a lifelong thing. I think my upbringing had a lot to do with it.
And now you've kind of expanded your nursing. You're doing holistic coaching. You're helping people with some alternative health modalities. You're doing these workshops. How did that transpire?
About 10 years ago, I came to a point in my life where I was really at a crossroads, and I think most of our listeners have had at least one or two experiences like that throughout their lifetime, maybe more. And I really started making changes in my life. I personally went under, I would say, a total transformation, changed the way I was living. And around that same time, I had a patient in ICU that really just brought to light how many hospitalizations are preventable. And that's when I decided to start my company, because I really wanted to help people avoid going to the hospital and to have quality of life, because there are a lot of things that we can do to live healthy and avoid disease.
So I've in the work I do with my clients, I find that these crossroads really are the turning points that push us in one direction or the next, and it's so important to understand our purpose, our why. So are you saying that your why came out of this kind of moment, again, with you're looking at yourself and looking at your patient and then decided to change course?
Totally came out of my why. And I have this saying of follow the breadcrumbs, right? So initially the breadcrumbs of the hardship from my childhood and teenage years led me into nursing. And that's my why. And then the why evolved to, oh, wait, we can change, despite our past, we're able to heal and create a beautiful future if we choose to, right? Takes work, but that's possible. And until that point in my life, I wanted to have a change in my life, but I had absolutely no idea how to do that. And so once I figured out, I can actually break these habits, break this cycle, and not carry around this guilt and shame, I wanted absolutely anyone who would listen to know about that. And so that really, fueled my why and fueled my vision.
So your journey gives you the compassion and gives you the purpose to help people on their journey, it sounds like.
It definitely does. It definitely does.
Wow. We talk about holistic. That's a term we hear a lot. How would you, define that term, holistic health? Like, how do you define that?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I'm sure people hear that word all the time, but what does that word really mean? And so when I say holistic, I talk about like our physical aspect of ourselves, our mental health, our emotional health, spiritual health, our social life, and really everything in between, because everything that's part of our life is connected. I use the image of, if you think about a chair, the four legs of a chair, and if you have harmony or health in all four areas, if we want to do it's a mouthful, biopsychosocial spiritual model, which is just physical, mental, social, and spiritual health. If you want to take those areas into consideration, say you have absolutely no spiritual life, so you picture a leg of that chair is totally broken off, what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to sit on that chair. We're going to slide off to one side, right, if the legs of the chair are not even. So in the same aspect, holistic health, holistic well-being is that everything that happens with us affects everything within our life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the whole encompasses every aspect of the life, the diet, their thought processes going on, their mental state, their spiritual state, and how they're taking care of themselves, their exercise, things of that nature.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Everything is related and has an influence on everything.
And the programs that you're doing, out of those four things, you are focusing on all four of those things for your clients?
We do. We focus on all four. For some people, it stands out, like their physical health is really suffering. So while we'll address the immediate needs, what needs the most attention, we also implement the other aspects too, because it all works together. So if we were to just totally ignore mental health while we were working and supporting physical health and working on a physical goal, let's say of exercise, getting active again, we wouldn't probably ever get active again if we didn't take into consideration what's going on mentally, because we need our minds to get us there to do the exercise or to eat healthy. And same thing with emotional health, especially with nutrition. I find that if the emotional health is a mess, then a lot of times our eating is really a mess as well. So we got to work on both.
I get stuck on this, I guess, chair sometimes myself. I'll go through phases where I'm really active, I feel great, and then all of a sudden I hit a roadblock, something happens, I'm like, I haven't exercised in days, I'm reaching for those bags of chips. How do we get derailed like that? What are the common things you see with your clients where they get derailed? And maybe they share stories, they're like, oh, I was healthy, now I'm like, I can't get off the couch. Like what happens? What causes that?
For a lot of people, it's a gradual thing. So, I missed a workout turns into, it's been three weeks to 3 months. It's just a gradual progression back to maybe old ways. As human beings, I think we lean towards wanting to be safe, right? And so we want to just go back, what's the most simplest thing that's going to use the least amount of energy? And then sometimes it's like a major life event, a crisis, and then we get out of our routine. So I think it's, can be a combination of things. Life happens. A lot of people are in caregiver roles, have a lot of responsibilities. And so a lot of times people put themselves last. And I don't know that we always realize it either, that, we're neglecting our health, especially when other things are pulling our attention.
I'm thinking of the audience right now. If there was somebody in the audience that would be a good client for you, what would they look like in your mind? What kind of awareness do they have of their health, or what does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, the people that I tend to work with they're stressed out. They've been used to high amounts of stress for a while, but now they're getting to this point where they're curious if they're going to be able to keep going at this level. They're starting to feel the effects of the stress. Maybe they can't sleep. Maybe they just have no energy. They're irritable. They've gotten blood work back from the doctor that's like, hey, you're pre-diabetic, or, now you're type 2 diabetes. Or somebody in their life has had a heart attack and now they're saying, hey, wait, I have those same characteristics. I have that same lifestyle as them. Maybe I need to start paying attention. So they're at a point where the accumulation of life stress and bad habits is starting to have its effect. And they also know that they need to do something. They have the awareness that they need to do something. They might not know what to do, but they have that willingness that they want to start to change their ways.
I like what you said, willingness. And they've kind of reached a similar turning point that you reached. I think there's a quote that's, if your why is strong enough, the how will happen, right? They got to the point where I want to do this. I've got grandkids, or I want to see them grow up, and I can barely get up the stairs, and now
when there's a will, there's a way. I say
right.
that a lot, and that's something that I work with my clients a lot in the beginning, is like, what's your why? And sometimes they don't really know what their why is at first. So it's something that once we're connected with our why, then we show up. We show up when we don't feel like it. We have, like you talked about a few minutes ago, we have that greater vision. So then that motivates us on those times where we're like, why am I doing this anyway? Right? We remember, I want to be around for my grandkids. I want to enjoy my retirement. I want to be a positive influence in my community. Or sometimes it's like, I just want to feel better. Like, I don't want to be on all these meds, and I want to feel better.
Now, when you talk about stress, one of the things I have to work on is this feel like I always have to be accomplishing something. Like there's got to be something going and going and going all the time, or else I feel like I wasn't productive today. And I think that creates this never-ending cycle of never doing enough. Do you find that with some of your clients?
Oh, that is everybody, I think, to some degree, pretty much. I think it's part of the human condition in some ways, especially in our culture, because there's such an emphasis on our worth is tied to our productivity. And if I'm not productive, then I'm of no value. So it's always conditional, but then it's never ending because, like you said, it's just never enough. And I also find that, believe it or not, that workaholism is actually can be a trauma response. So some people, I'm not saying this is your case, but some people will stay so busy all of the time to avoid underlying things that maybe feel too heavy to deal with from the past. So it can also be a coping mechanism, right? To not feel feelings, to not deal with some things that have been hard, those kinds of things.
Do you create strategies for your clients so that when they have these moments, they have something to lean on? Or talk a little bit about the atmosphere you're creating for your clients, some of the tools that you offer your clients to help them grow on a holistic level.
Yeah, definitely. One of my big intentions and goals with working with clients is that when we're done with our work together, they have tools that they can use the rest of their life that are effective, because we need to be able to coach ourselves, right? We're not always going to have our therapist or our coach or our friend or our spouse there. So it's important that we also have that inner resiliency. So mindfulness is a really big component of what I teach, and I can explain what mindfulness is. I know
please. I mean, we hear that term a lot.
Another one.
I think it's a broad category, but go through some of those tools, and then I want to go back to mindfulness a little bit, because we could do a whole show on that. And Cliff, I'm looking at you. We need to take a break, or 2 more minutes? Okay. So what are some of the other tools you leave your clients with?
Creating inner safety. That's one of the biggest things for people to be able to create their sense of inner calm, whether that's through breath work or vagus nerve activation, which is another thing I could talk about, but it's a cranial nerve that activates the rest and digest part of our nervous system, and a lot of people are in the sympathetic nervous system.
So it's not gambling, Vegas? It's a different...
No, Vegas with V-A-G-U-S.
So it's a different type of... Okay. Because there's some nerves going on in Vegas. It's a different nerve. Okay.
Take you to Vegas. Also, lifestyle changes.
Right.
So whether that's nutrition, hydration, sleep, right? I think we can underestimate how important sleep is, those kinds of things as well. EFT tapping is another thing. It's called emotional freedom technique. So it's another tool that I use a lot with my clients.
Going back to mindfulness, in your definition, talk a little bit about mindfulness, because I want to leave our audience with some tools that they can kind of maybe do a little research and use themselves today. So tell us, what would a mindful approach be, or a mindful practice start out with? What is that?
I would encourage you to join me right now actually in noticing your breath. So just starting to notice your breath. Our breath is always with us. And you might notice you're breathing into your shoulders, maybe a shallow breath. So to see if you can bring that breath in through the nose and actually let the belly rise on the inhale, on the in-breath, and on the exhale, let the belly fall. So the breath is a great place to start with mindfulness, as well as with our senses. So tuning into the senses, so noticing any sensations, any things that you see or smell, taste. And something that's important with mindfulness is to observe from that place of non-judgment. So we're practicing being present, but we're not judging it. And we're also practicing being kind and compassionate as well as curious. There's a saying that I would love to leave you with is, this is the first and last moment, right? This is the first and last day that we're going to be meeting in September on a Monday. And we can get through to the point where everything is just, routine. But actually, when we start to bring that mindfulness piece, that this is the first and the last, it creates a whole new approach to life.
That was wonderful. I like the definition of demonstration there. That was beautiful. It reminds me of the Indian sand paintings that the ladies do, and they do these intricate sand paintings, and like each moment is like this intricate sand painting, and then the wind blows that sand painting away, and we have another moment to create. It really so is. That was beautiful. Thank you for that, Brittney.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna break for commercial. We'll be back with Brittney and on Careology. Thank you, Cliff.
Have you been wondering
Bring them to St. Lucie Jewelry and Coin, and their friendly staff will tell you, and they'll pay you top dollar. Hi, it's Evan 9 from the Morning Show, and I can personally tell you from experience that St. Lucie Jewelry and Coin is the place to go for all your jewelry needs.
Hi, this is Hawk Levy from St. Lucie Jewelry and Coins. I want to tell you all thank you for voting us #1 again. Best jewelry and coin dealer, best gold and silver buyer, and best jewelry store.
You know the demand has never been more for fine jewelry, signed jewelry pieces, coins, coin collections, paper money, Rolex, and all luxury watches, even designer purses. You ask why you should sell to St. Lucie Jewelry and Coin? It's real simple. They buy your jewelry as jewelry and not scrap. They resell everything on the international auction platform and in their local store. St. Lucie Jewelry does free confidential appraisals and house calls as well. St. Lucie Jewelry and Coin, located at US 1 and Walton Road in the Publix Plaza.
If you could reimagine the way you buy a car, what would you do? Make it simple, make negotiations disappear, demand transparency, then experience amazing at your Treasure Coast Lexus dealer. Car Buying Simplified. Treasure Coast Lexus is a proud sponsor of Careology, caring and supporting for our community. Car Buying Simplified. Check out your Treasure Coast Lexus dealer. Thinking of building your next home or renovating? Come see us at Grozer Builders. We will create a home suited for your lifestyle. With years of experience means we give you a complete professional service from a dream to a concept. You will get the best results, best value, best quality is what you get from Grozer Builders. Visit us at grozerbuilders.com. You deserve better. You deserve Grozer. Create custom business signage that customers can't miss or resist. Let Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie help you get the job done right. Over 80 years combined experience. Get it right the first time. Call 772-337-4027 and tell them Roxy said to call. Remember, call 772-337-4020. Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
We now return to Careology, the science of caring. Once again, here's your host, Miles McGrath.
Well, thank you so much. We're back here with Brittney Cano. She is a holistic nurse, and we were talking about mindfulness. And it was really a nice state you put us in here. I'm thinking about all the things that happen in each moment. But you mentioned something about tapping. Now, I think of the word tapping. I think we're going to tap into something. But what is this tapping? What is that? And how can people use that? And where can they get more information about tapping? What is that?
Yeah, so it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and really you are kind of tapping into that mind-body emotion connection with it. And so what we do is we use our own fingertips to tap on acupressure points. If you think about acupuncture, kind of the same idea. We have these points in our body that are connected to different areas of energy in the body, and when we tap, it lowers the body's stress response. So it actually lowers cortisol, so automatically you're getting some health benefits when you tap. And then it also releases some feel-good hormones such as dopamine. And we combine that with modern-day psychology. So really you can address whatever is stressing you out. You can also do it for things that aren't stressing you out. But typically when I work with clients, we focus on something that's been stressing them out, whether it's an event or maybe they have an emotion that just keeps coming up. Let's say, I'm constantly feeling angry, and we will address like what is actually causing you to feel angry. And through the process, by the end, the goal is that either you have a lot less anger or maybe you have no anger response to whatever has been activating you.
So who developed this technique?
I can't remember the person's name, but it was about 30, 40 years ago is when they discovered it. And since then it's been, developed and they've progressed with it. There is, and what I like about it too, is they've done quite a bit of research showing that it really does support people in, connecting their mind and their emotions and their body.
And you've seen the results with your
I
clients.
do. So what we'll do before we go through the emotional freedom technique is we'll rate how stressful the experience is. So 10 would be the most stressful, 0 would be I have no stress on it whatsoever. And it can be, let's say, over the weekend there was a conversation with a significant other that just I can't let go of. And it's about an 8. Like I'm still just thinking about it and I'm just worked up. And so through the tapping process at the end, I'll say, okay, now how do you rate it? And almost, actually so far, with all the clients I've worked with, they'll be like a 3 or 2 or, you know what, I'm not even upset about it anymore. Because it's amazing once we can calm our body's response to that through tapping, because it lowers the cortisol. Then all kinds of things, we're able to process what really happened. We're able to see different perceptions. We're able to know, maybe I want to let this go. You know what I mean? Or look at this a different way or handle this a different way.
So you've got a website, holisticnursecoaches.com. Is that it?
That is it.
And you see clients along the Treasure Coast?
I do. I see clients along the Treasure Coast, and I see some out of state even, because I do virtual as well. And if they go to my website, they can get a free video that's going to explain what we're talking about, this emotional freedom technique. And it's a very easy process to learn. I'll give you an example. A girl came on our retreats, a woman, and she started teaching it to her 9-year-old when she got back home. And she updated the group that her son said, hey, Mommy, I started getting anxious in school today, but I used that tapping, and I had no anxiety. So super easy to learn and kid-friendly.
Can we make that part of driver's ed?
Yeah, right.
There's some emotions going on the highways out there.
Yeah.
For myself included. I'm a work in progress. Sometimes I do accelerate where I shouldn't. So
can I teach you another mindfulness tool that might help with that?
Please do. Please.
So this one, for everybody listening, this is a great one. It's called Stop. So STOP. So the S is actually going to be to stop. And I always encourage people to practice this like right now hopefully you're in a peaceful setting. Practice this when you feel good, so that when you are stressed out and somebody yanks out in front of you in traffic, you're able to have this on memory recall there. But the S is for stop. The T is going to be for take breaths. So back to that belly breathing is going to help have that sense of calm. Having a longer out breath is going to help create that sense of calm. And for some people, they just need a few breaths in whatever the situation is. Sometimes you might need a couple whole minutes of taking the breath. And then the O is going to be observe. So like I had mentioned before the break about mindfulness, observing from that place of non-judgment. So you're going to use your senses. If there's another person involved, you're going to tune in, notice what's going on with them. And just really take in an inventory of what's going on around you. And then the P is really where we get to have that self-agency, that self-empowerment, because we're going to proceed with what's going to support us best. So in some situations, it might be to continue to breathe. In others, it might be, hey, I need a few minutes. Might be you need to feed yourself, right? Because hangry is a real thing. So all kinds of things we can learn how to.
Hangry is a real thing. We heard it, Brittney. It is a real thing. That is a great acronym. Can you just go through it one more time?
Yes.
Just stop.
Yep, stop. So we're going to stop what we're doing.
Stop what we're doing.
So pause. I always say there's power in the pause. So we're going to stop.
Yes.
And then we're going to take a breath, or take however many breaths we need to take. Letting that inhale fill the belly, relax the shoulders, really expand down into the belly, into the sides of the ribs, the back. And then letting the out breath be really long, because that's going to create that sense of calm. And then the O is to observe.
Observe.
So just notice what's going on around you, as much time as you need. And then P is going to be proceed with what supports you best. So do what's going to support you best, or support the group, right? If you're in a group situation. And you can do this in 15 seconds. You could do this in 5 minutes.
I absolutely love how simple that is. I love how you could use that anywhere. We all have stressful situations in our lives, and we take a moment to stop and just take a breath.
And we
see
can
what's
do
going
it, yeah, even when we're not stressed. This can be
Right.
a really great tool. You go outside. How often do you really just take a moment to stop, breathe in fresh air, observe the sky, observe the clouds, observe, the animals, whatever, the traffic, and then maybe proceed with what supports you best. Maybe it's to stay there a couple more minutes and, enjoy the moment, because we can lose sight of the moment if we're not aware.
We've got a new puppy dog in our life.
Oh, nice.
And that little dog's name is Cookie. So Heidi and I, we went out for a walk last night, and the sun was going down, and the color in the sky was just this amazing color.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'm
the
so,
sky was awesome last night.
and I was so grateful that we took time just to take a walk and observe the sky, and that is not like a value. Like, oh, what are you doing? No, I'm out taking a walk. I'm looking at the clouds, and so that fits in with this, kind of stop and look around. And I was so grateful that we took a walk at that time. Like,
And it
we
does
would've
influence our
missed it.
quality of
Yeah,
life when we
yeah,
do that, when
yeah.
we're more connected with what's going on in our life.
You talk about our community when you said how important community is. I do think that's part of our health. How do you create a kind of team of people that want to be healthy together, and how important is that in what you're doing?
Well, to go back to that, when there's a will, there's a way, because that some people, when I first start working with them, they're like, nobody in my life is healthy, right? And nowadays we do have access to connect with people, with the internet, so we can find a healthy community if we look for it. And definitely in our area, I know for a fact there's lots of healthy communities. It does require that action, right, to put ourselves out there. And in that is also some vulnerability to go out there. But I definitely know that there are welcoming, healthy communities in our area.
Well,
and
how would somebody find, if they want to find like-minded people that want to practice some of these things, how would they find that?
You can look, I always say the internet, right? The internet. You can look on Facebook groups. You can look in Google. You can look in directories. I mean, I know a lot of places in the community that are great. Yoga studios are typically very welcoming. We have different community centers. And it depends what you like. Like if you want to have a meetup group for walking or, go into the beach. If you start to look, you will find these groups. There's meetup.com. There's all kinds of ways. You can look in. TC Palm has events all the time, and just showing up, right? And that can, if you're somebody who's introvert or a hermit and likes to stay home, you might say, well, I just like to be by myself. And I do get that to a degree, but really hear me, when we're not meant to do this journey of life on our own. No one is meant to spend a lot of time in isolation or alone. So it really is instrumental for well-being that we connect with people, and even putting our phones down sometimes and having those conversations at the store or while you're waiting in line somewhere.
Wow.
Makes a difference.
Talk with somebody else?
I know it's a rarity, but
Wow.
we need it.
So Meetup, I thought that was a great suggestion. That website's been around a long time. There are a lot of different events happening along the Treasure Coast. Now you do different events. I was at one of your cacao ceremonies where we learned about the chocolate, where chocolate comes from in different parts of South America, and it was a really interesting, informative thing. What are some of the other types of events that you host?
So I have one coming up about radical self-compassion. That's something that I am super passionate about, is teaching people how being compassionate with ourselves is a life changer and has positive effects on nearly pretty much every area of our life, including our relationships and how we show up at work and how we are in relationship with ourselves. I also do inner child healing workshops. That's another one that I'm teach regularly. And then other ones over like general wellness. So there'll be movement and mindfulness, breathing, these nervous system regulation tools that I mentioned. We'll do the tapping, that kind of stuff.
Let's go back to this first thing you said, this radical self-acceptance. Is that what you called it?
Self-compassion.
Self-compassion. when I heard that, the first thing that came to mind is self-talk. Is that part of that?
It is part of it. Yeah, there's that, how we talk to ourselves, and there's also a physical component, like can be like how we soothe ourselves. But it's a lot of like so there's two parts to it. There's the tender part of self-compassion, which is when we would speak to ourselves like we would somebody who's means the world to us, right? If they're having a hard time, we'd probably be like, it's okay. You know, this is just what people go through. You're going to get through this. A lot of times we don't do that to ourselves, let's be honest. And then there's also the fierce part of it, which is going to be, how do I motivate myself? How do I provide for myself? And how do I protect myself? Which we need both.
Call that the fierce part?
Yeah, the fierce part. So we need both, right? We need to be able to provide for ourselves, motivate ourselves, protect ourselves. And three of the things that are important aspects of self-compassion are the mindfulness piece. So we need to be aware how we're in relationship with ourselves, or that we're suffering, or that we're undergoing a hard time. And then there's the common humanity, just remembering that all human beings suffer. And not to say that it's the same. We don't all suffer the same, but we all suffer. And so whatever we're going through when we're suffering or struggling or having a hard time, a lot of times we go to, I'm all alone in this. But remembering that that's a universal human thing, is to have hard times. And then the kindness piece. So like, how can we be kind to ourselves while we're struggling? And we don't always do that.
You know, this is the third time someone has mentioned kindness today, so I'm going to take that as a sign. I believe in those things, that it's a topic that's important. And one of my beliefs is, and I'm curious to hear your thought, is that we can't be kind to others without being kind to ourselves. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Well, research actually supports that there are people who are kind to others and not kind to themselves, believe it or not. And women tend to be fall in that category more often, that they're kind to others and then not kind to themselves. Because I've heard the same thing about love, right? It's hard to love someone if you don't really love yourself. I think there's definitely an overlap. And it also with kindness, it's like, if you're not kind to yourself, what's your motive for, question might be like, what's your motive for being kind to others? And then is it really true kindness?
It's like I always go back to the oxygen mask metaphor, that we're on the plane, and they always remind us, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you try to take care of everybody else. Because yes, you could put the oxygen mask on everybody else in the plane and then die.
Yeah.
But we really have to take care of ourselves so we have room to take care of those we love. I mean, I think you might say, well, that's being selfish, but I think you're really, in the larger scheme, being more genuinely kind to others to give fuel in your tank, I think.
Yeah. Being part of being self-compassionate is not just only looking out for our own needs. It's also knowing that we're interconnected. So in taking care of other people, it also is taking care of us. But again, like knowing where that balance is. Because if we're always just taking care of others and not taking care of ourselves, there's an imbalance.
Yes.
Or if we're, the opposite, right?
And then I think the opposite is, and sometimes I fall into this category, is I don't need any help from anybody else. I can do it all myself. But then you're not allowing those that love you to offer their care. And I think I fall into that category sometimes, where I'm not saying, this person wants to help. Why don't you let them help you? Or why can't you overcome this feeling of like, oh, I can do it all, or admit that the ego has to step aside and admit that I do need help with this. And I think maybe that prevents a lot of people from seeking help from someone like yourself. It's like, oh, I can do it all myself. I don't need, I'm weak if I ask for help. How do you deal with that with your clients?
Well, I have this conversation actually a lot with my mother. A whole lot with my mother. And I always say there's like, 8 billion people at this point on Earth for a reason. So like, again, we're not meant to do this alone. But when we want to have a difficult time asking for help. Typically, it takes a while for those people to become my client because they're not in the space of realizing that additional support would be helpful. But here's a question for people listening. If you've been stuck in a pattern, right, for a long time and it keeps being the same and you wish it would change, but you haven't been able to change it on your own, to me, that's a good indicator that some additional support could be helpful. Well, you think about it like, I know you had somebody on talking about roofs, right? Would you try to go fix your roof on your own if you had absolutely no idea? You might, but how's that process going to be, right? More than likely, a lot of us are not going to be able to do it. And if we are, we're probably not going to do it correctly. And if we can do it, it's going to take for a long, long time. And the same thing goes with our health and well-being. If we've not been able to work through something, create those healthy habits, we're feeling stuck, having the support of a professional can really expedite the process and make the process possible.
What strikes me of what you're saying is, we talk about awareness. If we're not aware, we all have blind spots. If we're not aware of something, how do we know how to make it better? And I think that's part of, working with a coach or working with somebody who sees clients that are dealing with similar things. They bring that awareness and you're like, oh, I just make a few little changes and I can get back on course. But when it's just us looking in the mirror, we get that, like you said, that feedback loop. We keep repeating the same mistakes over because we're not aware of these little things we could have been doing differently, or we're just not even aware. We think we're perfect and we're not aware that there are a couple little adjustments from expanding into something even greater than we are currently. So it's hard.
Yeah.
We don't have that 360 degree awareness of ourselves. We need, like you said, we need other people to point things out.
And our body will tell us a lot of times. Like when I was talking about being burned out, at that time I was like, I should be able to be doing way more than I'm doing right now. That was my mindset. So I totally relate to what you're sharing. And then my body was like, oh no, I'm having stomach issues. That's how my stress usually manifests. But all of these symptoms that, sometimes we're just told to, they're normal or just take something for it. Actually, if we're curious and ask, like, what is my body trying to tell us, we can get a lot of information.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
True. So true. I think with the different stresses that we're under in the world today, today's September 11th, and I think back to that day, there were more heart attacks along the East Coast that happened within weeks of that. If that doesn't tell you we're all connected, like, did suddenly people just have more cholesterol at that time? No, they were feeling all those emotions and everything that was happening. So I think it's really important to be aware that we do affect each other, and we need to be, like you said, be kind and be that person that's willing to be kind for somebody else, be kind to yourself. It's so, I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Oh, I definitely do. Kindness is one of my top values.
Right.
Yeah, kindness is definitely one of my top values, and we don't know what other people are going through. It's easy to take things personally, when we think somebody's not treating us the way that they air quote should, and we don't know what other people are going through.
You want to put those shoes on and walk in somebody else's shoes before you judge.
And I will say, like, it's also, we have that opportunity to, if we don't like how people are treating us, to, adjust our position with them. Sometimes, not always, sometimes we're in situations where we don't have that, but remembering that we also have that empowerment piece, and we can also look at what's going on with this person, what's it mirroring back to us, which is a deeper, harder question, especially when we don't like what's showing up in front of us. Is what is this showing me about myself?
That
That's a hard one.
That was something I learned. I don't know if you know Byron Katie.
Oh, yes, I love Byron Katie.
Loving what is a never-ending lesson that if we could really come to that comprehension that the world is reflecting back to us our state that we're in, it takes that victim mentality and throws.
She's always like, "Is it true?
Is it true? Right?
Is it true? That it's true?
Can you absolutely know that that's true?" And it really has helped me so many times in relationships and with challenging situations with employees and with managers, and you kind of look at it as a gift almost when you're in those challenging moments. Like, this is reflecting back something I need to take a deeper look at, not just to be an annoyance. Like, this is, the universe is bringing this situation for you to really learn from it. But when you're in pain, it's hard to step back and realize that. That's where having a coach and having someone like yourself to kind of say, let's take a look at that. What happened there? And it's tough.
Yeah, it is. An important thing that I teach my clients is that we heal at the rate that we feel safe. So it's so important to have those tools that we talked about.
We heal at the rate we feel safe. Wow.
Because think about it, like
that
you said,
really
if you're
profound.
you're like, how is this a mirror? And you're super stressed out. You're not ready to look at that.
No.
You first have to get yourself in a safe space to be able to be willing to see that. And so that's the foundational work that has to be done first, is creating that sense of inner safety. And I believe that, like, from that space, and I've seen it in myself and in my clients, we are able to create those healthy habits so much easier. We're able to make those changes when we've started to master that sense of creating inner safety and outer safety as well.
We heal from a place where we think we're safe. Is that?
We heal at the rate that we're safe.
We
that we feel
at the
safe.
rate that we feel safe. So if we're not in a safe environment, we're not healing.
I don't want to say that, but like, your healing's going to be delayed, right? If we're in survival mode all the time, if we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, it's going to be hard to go and do deeper work, right? Because we're in the fear state so much. Or if we're in a physical environment where we're not safe, yes, there are ways in which we can start to heal, but it's going to be limited because our environment is not safe. We need a conducive environment for healing. Is most people, you given the right foundation, given the right environment, healing is our natural state.
I'm gonna ponder that one. If you, Brittney, could you share your contact information with the audience?
Yes, if you'd like to reach me and also get some of those free gifts that I was mentioning for the emotional freedom technique, you can find me at holisticnursecoaches.com. You can also set up a complimentary one-on-one Discover Elevated Wellbeing session with me too. We can explore your health.
Well, Brittney, it's been a delight. You've given me some good food for thought. We talked about mindfulness, and I'm going to really listen to this show. And if you want to hear this show again, it'll be on YouTube, on the PSL YouTube channel here. Cliff puts that up for you. Thank you so much to Cliff. Thank you, Careology, and Brittney. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
The Science of Caring. Careology, presented by Carebag. You can help. Visit the website you see on the screen. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie.